You're listening to The Aviation Show,
brought to you by DeBella Training.
For more information, contact us on www.debella.co.za now.
And good afternoon. Welcome to The Aviation Show, coming to you live from 27 Boxes in Melville. As always, my name is Des Werner, and this afternoon we've got a very, very special guest. If you're interested in money making, passive income, all of the above, it's a guy called Andrew Eaton. Welcome to the show, Andrew. Are you there?
Hi there, Des. Yes, I am indeed, and great to be on the show. Thank you for having me on it.
Okay, so first question people are going to be asking is what we're going to be discussing about making money and passive income and stuff, what's that got to do with aviation? So just let me quickly explain. Richard Branson is obviously one of the huge names in aviation. He's got his own airline, amongst other things. But he's one of the people that's behind what we're going to talk about today, and today's Bitcoin and Bitcoin mining. So if you can just introduce, cryptocurrencies to the people that don't know and how it works, because I know it's quite a complicated subject. For me to start doing that is going to be impossible. So off you go.
Okay, great. Fantastic, Des. Well, look, cryptocurrencies, if I could just go back and, try and explain to people how money's always worked and how money has always evolved. If you go back 6,000 years ago, people used to trade, cattle and shells and clothes, and that's how people traded 6,000 years ago. Then things evolved, and about 3,000 years ago they stopped trading and bartering, and they started creating little coins, and the coins could now be used as a monetary value, as a value system. I think about in the 1700s or somewhere around there, the first bank notes were produced, and people could now trade in bank notes. And then you go up to the early 1900s, or mid 1900s, where the first credit cards were introduced. Fast forward a little bit to a couple of years later, and electronic banking and all that sort of stuff started happening. And so money is always evolving, and the way we exchange money is always evolving. So really the next evolution in money is what's really happening right now in front of our eyes, Des, and that's the movement away from centralized monetary systems, which are controlled by the banks and the governments, and into decentralized monetary systems and ways to exchange a value in the form of cryptocurrencies, which are really community controlled instead of centrally controlled by a bank or a government. And that's really the space that we're playing in. It's a very exciting place to be. It's probably the biggest shift in the way money works in the history of mankind. And I think we're going to see in the next 10 to 20 years that, over the next 10 to 20 years, how the fiat currency system, which are your dollars and your rands and your euros, starts to fall away for a more decentralized system where like bitcoins and other cryptocurrencies like Ethereum. So it's just really an evolution of money, and people are already buying things with Bitcoin online. You can buy really anything you want with Bitcoin right now. Amazon accept Bitcoin. New vendors accepting Bitcoin every day because they realize the value of accepting Bitcoin, which I'm sure you're going to ask me now how it all works. But it just is really the next evolution in the way money works.
And
really,
you say that the banks aren't involved. So how do the banks feel about not being involved in Bitcoin?
Well, the banks aren't involved in Bitcoin, but what drives Bitcoin and any decentralized currency, all these cryptocurrencies, is something called the blockchain. And I suggest all your listeners go and Google blockchain, because many people are saying blockchain technology is going to change the world more than the internet did, and that's quite a big statement. So what drives the exchange of Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies really is something called the blockchain. And although banks really can't really get involved in Bitcoin because it's decentralized and we're trying to get out of the banking system, I can assure you that there's not a bank in the world that's not heavily investing, or not a decent bank in the world that's not heavily investing in trying to see how they can create their own currencies on the blockchain. Of course, those will still be centralized and controlled by them. So they're very interested in the blockchain. And the lovely thing about Bitcoin is that unfortunately for the banks and governments, there's very little that they can do to stop it. I mean, it's been around since 2008, and I think both those parties have been looking at ways to stop it for the last 9 years, and they simply can't. So they're really starting to look at how they can work with it right now. And I think that's where we are in the life cycle of Bitcoin at the moment. And the way things are going, it's really boding well for this particular cryptocurrency, that the governments and the banks, realizing they can't stop it, are starting to see how they can work with it.
Okay, so you're here today to talk to us about Bitcoin and Bitcoin mining. So just explain kind of the difference between the two quickly.
Okay, so let's just talk about Bitcoin and how it evolved. So Bitcoin was developed in 2008. So the first Bitcoin was produced in 2008. No one really knows by who, Des. There's a pseudonym. The guy's name was Yakamoto. Whether that pseudonym was for one single guy or a group of programmers, no one knows. They obviously wanted to keep very anonymous because they knew they were about to drastically change the way money works. You're dealing with some very dangerous people when you're doing that. So no one knows who did it. The last time anyone heard of them was on the dark net in 2011, when on the various Bitcoin forums they said our work here is done, or he said my work here is done, and that was the last anyone's heard of them. So 2008, the first Bitcoin was developed, and so to explain to you why Bitcoin, let me give you an example. If I had one Bitcoin now. For a moment, just forget about and ignore how I got that one Bitcoin. Just assume I had one Bitcoin and I wanted to buy let's assume I wanted to buy a Samsung Galaxy. Okay. Currently, one Bitcoin is worth about $1,000 for one Bitcoin. It's an appreciating currency. Let's assume I wanted to buy that phone, and I wanted to buy it with Bitcoin. So I did say Samsung Galaxy. The S7's probably about $700.
Around about
so let's put it in dollars. So if you try to buy a Samsung Galaxy from Samsung here, you're probably looking at about 10,000 Rand. So what I could do is I could go onto Google, and I could go and Google Samsung Galaxy S7 Bitcoin. It will bring up all the vendors that would accept Bitcoin for that phone, and there are lots of them. Okay. So let's assume that I find Des' cell phone shop in London, who normally I wouldn't do business with, right? Because you're in London, correct?
All right.
And the Rand is weaker, significantly weaker than the pound. So, but there I go onto your webpage, and there it says there's a picture of the phone, and it gives me the options of how I want to buy it. Do I want to buy it with a credit card? Do I want to do an EFT, or do I want to buy it Bitcoin? If I click Bitcoin, it will bring up a QR code that I would then scan. I have my own Bitcoin wallet where that Bitcoin, it's online, and there are many various Bitcoin wallets all over, that you can subscribe to. My Bitcoin sits in my wallet. I open my wallet, I scan the QR code. When I do that, immediately, let's assume that it said, okay, the phone costs, if you've got the Bitcoin route, the phone is going to cost you 0.634587 Bitcoin. The moment I scan that, the Bitcoin will be sent to you immediately. So no long delays of 2-3 days, internet bank EFTs and international transfer fees, and it's literally instantaneous. So my question to you is, when that happens and I send you the Bitcoin and now you can send me my phone, where were the banks in that entire process?
Nowhere. They weren't even watching the transaction.
Where were the banking fees?
Okay, no banking fees.
No banking fees. Where did I have to worry about exchange rate fluctuations?
Nothing.
Okay, because Bitcoin is global. A Bitcoin's a Bitcoin wherever you are in the world. Okay. So now that's why many more companies and individuals are starting to realize the massive benefit of trading in this new cryptocurrency, because the long and the short of it is that cryptocurrency, which I've sent over to you, is not controlled by any governments, any banks. There's no red tape. We control it, and I said that's why it's decentralized. So the way that's the value proposition in terms of using it. It's instantaneous payments anywhere in the world, and your transactional fees are literally non-existent, and it carries all those benefits with it. Now let's talk about how the Bitcoin was designed. So the way Bitcoin was designed, is that there's only a finite amount of Bitcoins that will ever be produced, 21 million.
Okay.
The last one will be produced in 2140. We know the exact date. Now what that creates is scarcity, all right, in supply, which is the way gold and silver work, which is the way it should work. All right. and it gets harder and harder to produce these bitcoins over time. I'm not going to go too much into that right now.
Okay.
So what happened is when the first Bitcoin was produced, it was 10 cents to the Bitcoin. That was in 2008.
Okay. And it's now $1,000.
It's now $1,000.
Sure.
So let's go back to 2008, and let's look at another huge benefit of Bitcoin. It's an appreciating currency. If you want to view it as a currency, many governments actually view it as an asset, including our own government. It doesn't view it as a currency; it views it as an asset. And therefore, with SARS, you'd be taxed capital gains.
Okay.
But this is, let's just call it a currency. It's appreciating. So let's go back to 2008 to show you what the real value is here and why things are so exciting. If I gave you 1,000 Rand in 2008 and told you to go to Pick and Pay, Des,
yes.
What would you have been able to buy with that 1,000 Rand?
Probably a trolley full of groceries, eh?
Trolley full of groceries. Okay. And if I gave you that same 1,000 Rand today and asked you to go to Pick and Pay and go and buy your groceries, how much would it buy you?
Like a basket full of groceries.
A basket full. Why is that, Des?
Because of inflation. So it's cost a hell of a lot more. It costs more now than what it did in
Correct.
2008, yeah.
Now, inflation is caused by various fiscal and monetary policies that governments put together, and which the moment they do that, that it causes inflation. And so every single fiat currency, meaning dollar, rand, euro, every single one in the world, and you can't get away from it, is a depreciating currency. From the day you were born, every single currency in the world has depreciated over time. Would you agree with me?
I agree with that, yeah.
There's nothing we can do about it. Okay.
Okay.
So let's go look and see what we're dealing with here for the people that start understanding the magnitude of what we're dealing with here. If I gave you, if I told you in 2008 and I gave you one Bitcoin in 2008, and I told you to go shopping with it, what would you have been able to buy?
I've got no idea what I'd be able to buy, but it was.
Well, it was 10 US cents to the Bitcoin in 2008. You'd probably have been able to buy yourself 5 chappies.
Okay.
Okay. If I gave you that very same Bitcoin today, Des, and told you to go shopping, what would you have been able to buy?
That's $1,000, which is 13,000 Rand. Quite a substantial trolley full of goods.
Yeah. Same Bitcoin.
Okay.
It's an appreciating currency because no government can just decide to, like the Federal Reserve, to go and print more dollars. It's finite and it's designed. It's completely, the value is completely dependent on the supply and demand. Okay.
All right.
So that doesn't mean to say it isn't affected by what governments do in the world, and I'm not going to go into that because we've got limited time. But no one government can control it with their own fiscal or monetary policies. It's community controlled. All right, and that means it's an appreciating currency. So many people in 2008 went and bought sort of 1,000 Bitcoin. It cost them $100.
Okay.
And that same 1,000 Bitcoins is now worth over $1 million to them because of the appreciating nature of the currency. Okay, so now let's look and see how Bitcoin transactions work. All right. So, Des, would you agree with me that if I want you to buy a cell phone from you in the fiat industry, in the fiat currency market, I want you to send an EFT to you. I would send an EFT to you. Your bank and my bank would talk. They'd verify the transaction, and you'd get the money, and you'd send me the cell phone. Correct?
Yeah, and depending on the bank, it could take up to 3 days.
It could take up to 3 days, and then your bank and my bank would both charge us. That's what verifying the transaction. Okay. So, and that's how banks really make their money. So, one of the ways they make the money. So with Bitcoin, what happens when I did that transaction with you for that same cell phone, but I used Bitcoin now, there were millions of computers around the world that verified that transaction. We call them volunteer computers.
Okay.
All right. So they verified the transaction, millions of them. So we weren't dependent on a bank or any one institution to verify that transaction. Now, what actually happens is that those millions of computers are what we call Bitcoin miners.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And I'm not going to go too much into right now about what a Bitcoin miner is. Just know that the reason why these volunteer computers exist is that what they do is they're very specialized computers. They run the algorithms that solve the equations that verify each and every transaction that happens on the Bitcoin blockchain.
Okay.
Okay. The ones that and while these transactions are taking place, Des, and there are literally hundreds of thousands of them happening every day now, if not millions happening. The way the blockchain works is that right now, every 10 minutes, 12.5 Bitcoins are released into the blockchain through these algorithms, okay? Through the way Bitcoin is developed. Every 10 minutes, 12.5 Bitcoins. And those computers that successfully solve the equations first to verify those transactions in that 10-minute period, they share in those 12.5 Bitcoins that have just been released into the blockchain, and that's called mining Bitcoins. So when your computer or your warehouse full of computers verifies those transactions first, you've just earned yourself a few of those Bitcoins or percentages of those Bitcoins that went into the blockchain, and that's called mining it. So you now, instead of having to buy Bitcoin, you can basically produce your own Bitcoin. Does that make sense?
It does. So you're not collecting actually a coin like a rand or a whatever coin. You'll be investing in mining equipment, which then mines the calculation, and then you're rewarded in what is called a Bitcoin.
That's correct. So, I mean, if you look at a lot of people struggle to get their head around it because they can only see coins and notes. That's just an illustration of the value. If you think about it, if I took away all your rands and all your coins, Des, and you took away all my rands and all my notes, would you and I still be able to transact electronically in the fiat industry?
Most definitely. You can transact on EFTs, credit cards. It basically have no effect.
Correct, because all money is a ledger. That's all it is. It's a string of data lines, and money just is really a ledger. We have no more need for notes and coins. And so that ledger, those ledgers, money ledgers, are controlled by banks and governments.
Okay.
Bitcoin's ledger is controlled by the community of people who use it, and therefore no one can manipulate it. No one can decide to create a fiscal policy or monetary policy that drastically affects the the value of the actual currency. So it's just a ledger, and all the integrity of that ledger is maintained by the people and the organizations that own the computers that verify the transactions. And at the same time, those people and those organizations are doing that because when they verify those transactions, they can collect some of the Bitcoin that gets, or a portion of the Bitcoin that gets released into the blockchain every 10 minutes.
Fantastic. Andrew, we're going to continue this conversation in a sec. We've unfortunately got to go to a quick break, but we'll be back and then we'll be talking about the big picture. So if you can give us a big picture overview when we get back.
Super.
Get all of today's aviation news on one site. Visit pilotspost.com. Updated twice a week, Pilots Post is a convenient way for aviation professionals and enthusiasts to remain updated with the latest aviation technologies, products, events, and news. Aviation safety, technical information, events reports, aircraft reviews, and aviation personalities are some of our most popular articles. Now in its 5th year with more than 100,000 hits per month and almost 15,000 dedicated readers. Pilots Post is available free on the web. No registration is required. To read Pilots Post, simply go to www.pilotspost.com.
DeBella Training and Management provides South African civil aviation approved training to aircraft maintenance engineers. From engine to airframe, DeBella offers international quality courses on a wide range of aircraft. Many of our clients are from Africa and the Far East, enjoying DeBella's tranquil on-site accommodation minutes away from the airport, and also provide courses in your country depending on your training needs. DeBella's pioneering range of practical hands-on training videos augment the DeBella theoretical modules, modernizing the aviation training industry. Visit www.debella.co.za now. DeBella, you name it. We train it.
And welcome back to the Aviation Show, coming to you live from 27 Boxes in Melville. And we've got a most fascinating guest, Andrew Eaton, talking to us about Bitcoin. Andrew, you still there?
I'm indeed, Des.
Cool, welcome back. We've only got about 7 minutes left, so let me just ask you quickly, what's the big picture view in about Bitcoin and Bitcoin mining?
Des, it's here to stay. there's nothing that any government or bank can really do to stop it. They can try and control it a little bit in their various ways, and I'm sure that as they start to try and work with it rather than against it, you're going to see quite a even a bigger uptake. So it's a very exciting place to be playing in. That's why the likes of the Richard Bransons and the Bill Gates of the world are heavily investing in it. So I believe everyone should have a bit of Bitcoin, at least. Many people predict that Bitcoin that's now on $1,000 per Bitcoin. When I started mining Bitcoin last year, in March last year, it was $350 to the Bitcoin. It's now over 1,000. So it's a volatile currency or commodity, but it's got a steadily upwards growing curve. Many people believe that by the end of this year, Bitcoin could be up to the $3,000 mark per Bitcoin. And from there, over the next 3-4 years, running up to $25,000 to $100,000 per Bitcoin. So, you'd want to be owning some Bitcoin. But I think the bigger picture from what we really like to do, Des, is, we don't want to buy Bitcoin. We want to produce it. We want to be involved in mining the actual Bitcoin. And as I said, miners are those guys that own the computers, that run the algorithms, that solve the equations, that verify all the transactions, and as a result, get rewarded with Bitcoin. And it's old from the old proverbial that little story about the goose that laid the golden egg. If you buy Bitcoin, that's great and it will appreciate. But if you become involved with the actual mining, well, then you've got the proverbial goose that keeps laying the golden egg. So that's really what we're involved in. There are many barriers to entry in that right now. I'm just an average South African. I could never, some of the bigger warehouses have got millions and millions of dollars worth of equipment in. And obviously, the more equipment you got, the more your mining capacity, the more you're going to hit the blockchain, the more you're going to solve these equations, which means the little guy like me and you, Des, if we're trying to do it on a little home computer, we're just never going to be successful. It's like going and try and mine with a bucket and a spade at the bottom of the shaft next to an angler shaft. So a lot of barriers to entry, and so what we've done, Des, is as a community, we've clubbed together. We've basically crowdfunded a mine, if I could put it that way, and we're helping the little guy on the street become involved with mining the actual Bitcoin. Very exciting. And we've, as a community, have been mining the Bitcoin in this particular facility in our facilities and through this platform now since March last year. And we've seen people, based on the amount of money they put into mining equipment, grow at up to 5% per month rewards. So if you started buying, to put things into perspective, if you started mining with $1,000. A $1,000 contract, which is $1,000 worth of equipment and what we call gigahash, which drives it. What we've seen over the last year historically is that we would, this particular mine in our platform would enable you to mine about $50 worth of Bitcoin a month. Okay. So that that's pretty. That's pretty exciting. There's not many banks not any that I'm aware of that could give you those sort of returns in a traditional monetary instrument. So very exciting to be in, and that's what really excites us. That's what we do. We help normal people like you and me, Des, become involved in the industry, become involved in mining Bitcoin, and thereby helping them hedge a little bit of their money outside the fiat currencies. We got a budget speech coming up, and heaven knows what's going to happen to the South African economy. So that's why I said it's a good idea just to have a little bit of your money outside fiat currencies and in digital currencies. And what better way to do it than keep producing it yourself?
Now I have to ask you this question, Andrew. When people start talking about mining, cloud mining, the word scam has to come up there because there's been so many scamsters out there that just are taking people's money. What makes your mine different?
Well, this is a great question, Des, because you know what? We all entrepreneurs, they identify a problem and then find the solution. And certainly, Bitcoin in itself and the Bitcoin industry is a great industry. But unfortunately, as with anything, you're always going to find the fraudsters and the scamsters trying to take advantage of a situation or an opportunity. And as much as you get fraudsters and scamsters dealing in fiat currencies like the rand and the dollar, and I'm sure you'd agree, Des, that there are plenty of those. Unfortunately, you find a lot of those people in the Bitcoin mining, in the Bitcoin industry as well. So But Des, so one of the things that is happening is that people have and organizations have created beautiful websites where they pretend they're mining and cloud mining, and there's no real proof that that's actually happening. They promise great returns, and then basically they steal the money from people by creating a situation where they take money from Des to pay Andrew, and then et cetera, et cetera. But there's no real mining. And I think that's the biggest problem. So, what we decided is that, we're going to create a real mine. We're going to crowdfund it. We've been to the mine. There are pictures of us and videos of us in the mine with real equipment, and allow people to actually own those equipment. And know that they're mining in a real mine with real equipment, and that really sets us apart. And there are a couple of things, that people need to understand. If you're ever trying to get involved with mining Bitcoin online, remotely, and there's a website that gives you guaranteed returns, well, that will be a first red light, because you take the risk with the mine. No mine can ever guarantee your returns. The second thing is, if you buy a contract and your contract goes live within a couple of seconds, that's another clue as to another red flag, because with us it takes 12 days for your contract to go live after you've purchased it, because we physically have to ship your mining equipment from China to our mine, which is in America. And it takes time to set that equipment up to go mining for you. So any organization online that promises you a guaranteed return, I'd run a mile. And any organization online that lets your contract go live immediately, I'd also run a mile. Those are two huge red flags. So what sets us aside is proof of our mine. We're happy for people to, in South Africa, to have been inside the mine, pictures, videos taken. It's very real. And we also like to educate people on how best to go about it.
Well, exciting stuff, Andrew. We've run out of time already, so just quickly tell us, where can people get more information about this?
Well, Des, I think the best way to go about it is, we do weekly information sessions, and maybe you can just type it up on your website, Des, but it's teamjaihugeness.com, teamjaihugeness.com. I'll spell that, GIHUGENESS.com. All our events all over South Africa, presentations are listed there. And people can just go and look and go and attend. They can just, that is a booking site, but they can just go to the door. And I think as well, Des, if people want to, find out more, maybe if you could just get them to email you or give them your contact details, and maybe we can take things from there, Des.
Okay. Well, my email address is des, DES, at debela, DEBELA.co.za. And we'll pass on the leads. But Andrew, it's been absolutely fantastic having you on the show. Sorry it's so short. We're going to have to get you back again for the other questions.
No problem, Des. It's been an absolute pleasure being on the show. I really appreciate your time. And I just hope the listeners, if there's anything that if I've accomplished one thing, is to make them sit up and take note of probably the biggest trend that we'll ever see in our lifetime. It's certainly bigger than the internet. Now, if you can fathom that, this is certainly not something that you can afford to ignore. By all means, be skeptical, but don't be closed-minded. It could cost people a lot of money.
Well, exciting stuff. Thanks so much. Until we meet again from us, bye-bye.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Des.
Cheers.
You have been listening to The Aviation Show on brandlive.co.za. Proudly brought to you by Debela Training.
Visit www.debela.co.za now.